Hey, what's up out there, YouTube? Double D here with Tournage Dubois. Welcome back. Today I want to start a new process in my videos. I mean, I've done a lot of videos with a lot of projects and I'm going to continue doing those, but I also want to do some instructional type videos. So number one, these videos, they are using my technique. So keep in mind, this works for me. I have tried it. I have worked with it. It works for me. So it's what I'm comfortable with. I learned how to do all the wood turning from YouTube, from watching other people's videos. So I just want to share a little bit of wisdom that I may have gleaned over time that hopefully will help your transition and your learning in how you do your wood turning to make sure you're comfortable. So I'm going to be doing shorter videos just showing a specific technique. Today I have this piece of oak that I started rough turned a long time ago. Started doing, that's been back when I was doing mortises. So as you can see, there's a little start of a mortise. It's got where the faceplate was, so I still have my center point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this between centers. Most people start between centers because unless they have a faceplate, but I want to be able to kind of work in a way that will show without faceplates and things. So I'm going to start by using a live center. So this live center has a cone, and this cone will depress into the wood. These teeth will grip it as it turns in the lathe. So I'm going to use this as my drive center. I'll have it stuck between centers, which will consist of the drive center, which will turn the piece, and then the live center, which just holds it steady. And we're just going to show you a technique and how I make a tenon for a piece of wood that I can then put in the four-jawed chuck. So let's get rolling. All right, so what is the important part about making a tenon on a piece of wood? This is a small one of the four jaws that's in a chuck that I utilize. The important thing we want to do is, one, we want to fit the curve of this almost as closely as we can, because there's two parts of a tenon that really matter. Number one is the size of the tenon to fit appropriately for the jaws. And the second part is to get the surface where this portion touches, so this part, as flat as you can get it. The purpose of that is because this portion, the friction on this flat surface, is what actually drives the piece when it's turning. It's not the grip. The grip keeps it steady, but it's this tension on this surface that keeps it steady. Now the reason you want it as close as you can get it in size, and this is obviously exaggerated, but if you look at that, when I put that in the circle, you can see that it only is really touching on the very edges of the piece. That's not going to get a really good grip. So you want to make sure that you're getting it the right size so that this tightens down and you have as much of this surface on the wood, on that tenon as you can get it, and then that flat portion here, which is what's going to help drive the piece. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this piece centered up. So we'll have it turned, and then we're just going to start shaping the tenon, and I'm going to show you how I get it to the right size so that it fits real closely in that chuck. All right, so as you can see here, we have our drive spur, and that is dug in real well into the piece of wood. Then on this back side, we have our live center. So this is just going to allow it to free spin, and that way it won't bog anything down, but that's going to keep it centered. And we're just going to start shaping the bottom of this piece to get to our tenon size. Now the 50mm jaws that I have a template for that. So this top portion is for a tenon. So you'll be able to slide that right around the end of a tenon. That will tell you that that's the right size. This other end is for a recess, so that if you can fit the jaws inside of that recess that you turn, then that's going to fit perfectly if you need it for that. So we'll turn that down and we'll go. I want to go till it's just a touch bigger than this, because this is almost exactly 50mm. I want it probably just a little bit bigger than that, but we'll turn it till we're about there, and then we'll go from there. So we'll show you all that. When you're turning with traditional tools, you want that cutting just at the center mark. So as you can see here, I don't know how well you can see, but I'm just a little bit high of the center mark, so I'm going to lower my tool rest. If you are using carbides, then you want that cutter being perpendicular to the cut, but parallel with your lathe bed. You want that to be at center or just below. So you would just accommodate the height of your tool rest for whatever type of tool you are utilizing. Since I use traditionals for the most part, I want to make sure that my cut is pretty much right at the center mark where we're going to go. So I've got that running just at 700 RPM. This obviously is a little out of round, So we will just work on getting that bottom shaped. I'm just going to do this in sections for you. Now that was all real-time cutting. I'm not going to edit that down too much. As you can see, I've already got my basic tenon shape going. So I'm going to go in just a little bit deeper. I'm getting good cuts on that. This is not a grand piece of oak. As you can see, there's cracking and things like that, so I'm not super worried about this. I'm just going to show you how we do this. So I'm getting that cut in. I'm going to start leveling this off, which I already have, but we're just going to keep going in until we get to that size we need. As you can see, that is significantly larger than where I need to be right now. So I want to come in probably about a little over 1/4 inch to get to the size I want to go to. So you can see I'm just a little tiny bit bigger than where it needs to be, which is great because that gives me a little bit of room to take some extra off. So we're just going to cut in just a little tiny bit more, and we're pretty much going to be close to done with this. So like I said, this is just a little bigger than what we need to, but the second part is we need to put a dovetail on it. As you can see from this chuck jaw, it is a little bit wider at the top than it is at the bottom. So that's going to mean I need a dovetail on this. There are some jaws that a flat surface will suffice. The jaws I use have a little bit of a dovetail. So I'm going to use my skew. I'm going to come in this direction. I'm going to trim that in just a little bit at an angle so that I get that dovetail. And I'll shrink this down just a little tiny bit more so that those jaws fit even better. Then I'll also come in this direction and I'll just flatten that out just a little bit where that jaw matches so that that sits just the way I want it on that tenon and rests flat against the surface of the bottom of the bolt. So let's get that done. Now let's put it on the chuck and see how it fits. All right, so as you can see, I still have my center mark there, which is where the live center was. That's awesome, because what happens is after I get the bowl shaped, I can put that on a jam chuck, line that up with that live center just like that, and that'll allow me to keep it centered while I turn that tenon off. We'll have a nice, clean, flat bottom of this bowl. So it's always important, even if you have it screwed on with a faceplate or secured in some other way, when you put that tenon on, make sure you put that tailstock up and poke that hole so that you know exactly where the center spot was on that. All right, so here is my chuck with the chuck jaws. I can set that down and I can wiggle that around. So I don't have that open too awfully far, but I've got some wiggle room in there. And that's perfectly fine, because as I tighten that down, it's gonna grab pretty good the way I want it to and be right where we need it to be. So I'm just gonna tighten this up. I like to tighten it at each spot just to be safe. So I have a little bit of a gap there, a little more than I need. A good rule of thumb is to shoot for a nickel. Nickel's worth of space. I got a little bit more than that, but that's okay. It's not going to be terrible. Just know that the smaller you can get that gap, the better it's going to be, just to make sure it has enough tension on all the wood part. So that is how I make a tenon to put on a piece. Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed that little project. Like I said, I wanted to do an educational series just to show how something is done from start to finish, just a little bit, just to help people get a little bit of confidence. It's something to practice on. It's going to be the same technique whether you're doing end grain or side grain like this piece. So this piece, by meaning side grain, the tree's growing like this, so this grain is the side grain. So this is going up and we're coming in from the side. If it was end grain only, we would have a piece like a baseball bat or a tree limb, something like that, that's going to be the length of the tree with all the grain going that direction. We'll get into that a little bit more as we proceed through these series, but I wanted to start off with something just to help with a little bit of technique. And if you have questions, concerns, or thoughts or feedback, leave them down below in the comments. That's why I read them all, I respond to them all, and all the followers that I have learned from who watch me too, they respond as well. So it's a great community to get to be a part of, and I encourage every one of you to try it if you haven't already. If this is your first time here, please do consider subscribing. If you like that video, mash a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. Either way, like I said, leave your comments, feedback down below. I appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you next time.